wrestling fans, well, what do you know? It's the Outlaw John Rocha. This is so exciting to me. This new show we're doing on the Outlaw Nation YouTube channel. A lot of you have been clamoring for me to come back and talk about pro wrestling. And I knew I couldn't come back. If I couldn't have Ryan Satin to do it with, I knew I couldn't come back unless I could convince Orlando's own Aaron Turner to come back on to the show, to do a show with me. And he said yes. I'm excited. Aaron, how are you, man?
Apparently second best to Ryan Satin, it appears, but I'm happy to be here. No, Ryan's a great guy. But yeah, man, I mean, come on. Like, we did a show together back in the day. A lot of people liked it. A lot of people kind of clamored. There was a little bit of an energy to see the Outlaw and me back together.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
We have arrived.
A lot of people were excited to see us getting back together and doing this thing, and I'm certainly excited about it. Oh, wait, let me get my headphones. I got to do the whole nine, don't I? Don't I have to put on my headphones?
I think so,
and
yeah.
be all professional and shit? Hold on. You hold the fort. Wait a minute. We're going to talk about the 1992 Royal Rumble with Ric Flair and everything
Correct.
like that. So, Aaron, why don't you give me history while I go grab my headphones?
Okay, a lot of stuff happened on the way to the funny thing happened on the way to the 1992 Royal Rumble. We had a lot of storylines that converged together here. We had Ric Flair, who came over from WCW at this time, a move that nobody thought would ever happen, but it did. And the reason for that was Jim Herd. We're going to talk more about that in depth in a second. Another thing that happened was Bret the Hitman Hart losing his Intercontinental Championship at a house show to the Bounty. That is something else that we'll have to talk more in depth about. The Rockers broke up. A lot of stuff going on. The Macho Man gets bitten by an actual snake. A lot of things happened on the way to the 1992 Royal Rumble. And that's why we chose it, because we're not trying to do things that are necessarily current or relevant. I assume if something's like huge, we'll talk about it.
Right.
But mainly, I think the way that you presented it to me and the reason I wanted to be on board was we're going to talk about older stuff.
Yeah.
And that's more than what I'm attuned to at this point.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, Aaron, for me. I mean, I know a lot of stuff's going on right now with all these different federations out there and all these different shows. But, sometimes when you're at this stage, when you've talked enough about wrestling, Lord knows I've done enough recap shows that it's time to kind of sit back a little bit and go back and revisit why we fell in love with professional wrestling. What is about these classic matches that attracted us and still bring us back to watch them, and also what was the history around those matches at that time, and now all this time later, what have we found out about what was going on with those wrestlers, with those federations, with those matches and the results of those matches afterwards. So that's a lot of fun to explore. And we call it strong style because I like the idea of the Kinshasa. I love the idea of NJPW. I love the idea of Shinsuke Nakamura. So to me, strong style is how me and you come, because we both have strong opinions. We don't always agree, which is always fun. And so this is why I wanted to call it strong style, why I'm excited to do it. And I hope the fans who are watching and listening to us are also excited to hear our thoughts on this particular Royal Rumble.
Well, it's thought to be the greatest Royal Rumble of all time. I don't mean the Saudi Arabia show. I mean like the actual greatest Royal Rumble of all time. This one in, I think, 2002 or 2006 are considered the greatest Royal Rumbles of all time. And it has to do with all of those storylines converging. The amount of Hall of Famers that are in this Royal Rumble, there's a lot. And that's where we start off, because Ric Flair comes to the WWF in 1991, late 1991. And that's because he had issues with Jim Herd, who was running WCW at the time. And back then they had, the big gold championship, which was later brought in to WCW once again. But when you're a champion back then in WCW, you had to pay a $25,000 deposit on that championship to make sure that you didn't just jump to a different territory and take the belt.
Yeah.
So in Ric Flair and Jim Herd kept bumping heads because Jim Herd wanted Ric Flair to cut his hair. You don't cut Ric Flair's hair. And he just never got on with Flair, because Jim Herd was not a TV guy. He was not a wrestling guy. He's a Pizza Hut GM.
Right.
Like, what kind of clown is running this? But Ric Flair he says, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to the WWF, and I want my $25,000 deposit back. Well, Jim Herd tells Ric Flair, F you, and your 25,000 and your effing belt. So Ric Flair says, all right, I'm out, and I'll take the belt with me.
Yeah.
And then shows up on primetime television with Bobby Heenan with the belt, calling himself the real world's heavyweight champion, which I assume back in the day, like, just blew people away.
Yes.
I don't personally remember it because I caught all of my stuff on home video later on because, I was born in 86, so I'd have been 6 years old at the time. But it's crazy to think. That would be like if, that'd be like if Tanahashi just showed up on Monday Night Raw and was just like, yeah, I'm here now, and the IWGP Championship is the real title. People would go insane. People would lose their minds.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what it was like back in the day. Do you remember this at all?
Oh, absolutely, man, because it was a big deal because when you growing up, at least the time that I did when I was a teenager in the 80s, you were either a Ric Flair guy or a Hulk Hogan guy. Or woman, whichever way, whatever your inclination is. You either cheered for Ric Flair or you cheered for Hulk Hogan. And ne'er the twain shall meet, like we always talked about. And, I was collecting Pro Wrestling Illustrated at that time. I'm not sure Pro Wrestling Weekly was also available, but like there was a lot of conversations about whether it was Flair or Hogan. If you were like really a technical lover of the, technical wrestling, you were a Flair guy. Hogan was an insult to your love of technical wrestling. If you were a Hogan guy, you thought Flair would try to be as good as Hogan, but Hogan was like selling out arenas while Flair was selling out, 18,000 or 12,000 people stadium. So at that point, the idea of these two guys coming together to fight, which is in essence fight for the title. And both these guys were in their prime when they finally got a chance to go at it, as opposed to The Rock and Hogan. These two guys were actually in their prime. And I remember when he showed up on WWF, I never thought that was going to happen because it was such a massive deal that he was WCW. He was Southern Wrestling. He was independent wrestling. He was real pro wrestling, not entertainment pro wrestling. So to see him show up on WWF at the time, WWF, what it was at the time, was very surprising.
Well, it's not only that, like not only Ric Flair coming there to converge on this Rumble, we had Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. The classic barbershop segment was only 2 weeks before this Royal Rumble. So that happened. The Rockers are no more. Shawn Michaels is on his way to being a legend and one of the best to ever do it right from this point. So this is like the genesis of the Heartbreak Kid, which is really awesome. And right about this time as well, you had the Macho Man Randy Savage, who had essentially retired from the ring after his match with Warrior, but was brought back after Jake Roberts slapped Elizabeth and gave them the present of a cobra on their wedding day and had the cobra bite the Macho Man. And I remember as a kid, like losing my mind, like watching that, like, that's not real. That's not real. And it was real, which is crazy. And you'll see if you watch, we're not doing a watch along, but if you watch the Rumble back, you can see Macho Man just coming out full bore for Jake Roberts. And if you're wondering why, that's part of it.
Yeah.
It's good to see Macho doing that. But the last thing that kind of converged here was Bret the Hitman Hart at this time was the Intercontinental Champion. And he was also rumored to be talking with WCW at this time. So in a move, we're not too far from seeing Vince McMahon do a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Bret Hart lost his Intercontinental Championship to the Mountie at a house show. And then in turn, the Mountie lost it to the Hot Rod, Rowdy Roddy Piper, who will also show up in this Rumble. So a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of storylines. So Bret Hart is not here in this Royal Rumble. That's why you won't see him. That's why you won't see Marty Jannetty. Warrior's gone at this time. He held up Vince for money, so he's out.
Yeah.
So we are missing some big stars, but man, there's a ton in this Rumble.
Yeah, and at some point, Gorilla Monsoon says how many former WWF champions or champions themselves are in the ring at the same time during the Royal Rumble at some segment of and you're just like, yeah, it's actually insane to think about how many champions were in there rolling through there at different levels and at different times. Including Virgil, who was the $1 million champion at the time.
I guess. You want to count that, sure.
Well, the other thing that was interesting here too, Aaron, if you look at it, is like this is 92. This is like we're this close to Hogan going to WCW. We're a few years away from NWO. And as people may remember, and especially if you go back and watch the WWF, watch the Royal Rumble on the WWF app, which I have, you can hear the boos start to come out for Hogan. Like the fans are starting to turn on the red and yellow, and they're upset that he's always winning. They're upset that they're aware of the product being manipulated so that Hogan is constantly the focus of attention. And even in this situation, Aaron, and I forgot about this, like Flair wins this insane Royal Rumble to win the title, coming in at number 3, and they immediately shuttle that away to focus on Sid and Hogan. And that blew my mind. And yes, Flair gets that promo at the end, but he should have been in that ring, like totally getting feted by Mean Gene for all the fans. It was shocking to see that, but that was probably the height or the beginning of the end of Hogan being beloved at that time for all he had done before in the 80s and the early 90s.
Yeah, because we're 1 year away from, about a little bit more than 1 year away from WrestleMania 9, where he would actually beat Yokozuna for the WWF Championship over some bull crap, as a Bret Hart fan. And then by June of '93, he's gone.
Yeah,
Hulk Hogan's gone. So is Ric Flair. They're both gone. Right. So a lot of moving and shaking after this, and I think that's why it's important to a lot of people, because we got a lot of moving parts. But it's not the first. Well, I'm sorry, it was the first time at this point that the WWF title was contested in the Royal Rumble. The second time was 2016.
Yeah.
When Roman Reigns had to go against the whole gauntlet at number 1, eventually losing, getting thrown out by Triple H, and Triple H eventually won the title.
Yeah.
I was there. Huh. It was a historic night, as the debut of the phenomenal AJ Styles in WWE was that night. And what a great night it was. So it's always cool if you can take a Royal Rumble and you'll stack the WWF Championship on top of it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like it makes it that much cooler.
No, I don't disagree with you, and that's what's incredible about the whole thing that was happening here. And like you said, you didn't have everybody coming in this like Bret Hart and all that, but you had all these storylines that were still dancing around at the same time. And Piper's still in his prime, just about entering that where he's a little bit shaky in the mid-90s there. Certainly Hercules, who had been such a powerhouse. I remember him at WrestleMania 3. He is, you can see the hair is balding. He's, he's not as strong or as cut as he was before. And I wonder if we're at that stage where steroids are in the, or allegedly steroids are being used here by certain people. I mean, it's interesting to watch how many large dudes are in the WWF at this time.
Yeah, you're right. That timeline is about right, because by the next year, Hulk Hogan's down like 60 pounds. So you're about at that right time. And it's funny that you mentioned Hercules, because he's somebody that stuck out to me like a sore thumb, because I remember as well, like seeing him as like this big, jacked up, super looking guy with like the short curly hair and the chain. Dude, he was intimidating. And then he rolls in here and he's blown up by the time he gets to the ring. He can't even breathe walking around. And it's just like, man, what a weird difference. And you see people like him and the Warlord, who I was like, whoa, this is like if Stone Cold Steve Austin was on the juice. Like, my goodness, like not ability wise, but looks wise. Like he looked like a supremely jacked up Stone Cold Steve Austin. So just a lot of weird stuff. The thing that stuck out to me the most, besides, Ric Flair being amazing. Ric Flair is amazing in this Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it in a while, he's on point. The British Bulldog had a really strong showing as well.
Yeah.
But the commentary is the first thing that it's grilling Bobby.
Incredible.
You can't
commentary.
Beat it.
No.
Can't beat it.
And Bobby
stop every time.
Everything. Bobby is living through every moment, and he's almost the show within the show. Aaron, watching it again, I'd forgotten how much Bobby's love of Flair and desire for Flair to win, which of course is all there in the storyline, was so prevalent throughout, and Gorilla playing with him through, it's just perfect. I mean, there's a couple of racist jokes in there at Santana's expense, but that's the time. That was the time. But Gorilla calls him out on it each time, and so you knew there was a balance between these two guys. And Heenan was hilarious. I won't say anything bad ever again. Please let Flair win. Or it's a kilt. It's not a skirt. And then Roddy turns on Flair, and you skirt wearing freak. There's all this brilliant,
so good.
Brilliant stuff that we'll never see again. the like of Bobby. Bobby could really bring something to life as you were watching it, or something as great as this, take it to the next level with his commentary and Gorilla riding right alongside him. It was fantastic.
Yeah, Gorilla, the constant straight man.
Yeah.
But I did want to mention this. This is a fun fact.
Yeah.
17 of the 30 competitors are Hall of Famers.
Wow.
Well, 16 are actually already in. One was The Undertaker.
Yeah.
So I think we can probably say that The Undertaker is going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So I'll put it at 17, which is pretty crazy considering that the British Bulldog, Haku, and who else did I see on here that's not in the Hall of Fame yet? Who else was it? IRS is not in the Hall of Fame either.
Right.
So that's kind of three names that probably could be in the Hall of Fame. Rick Martel as well was another one that I'm actually campaigning to get in the Hall of Fame. I think Rick Martel is a glaring issue of not being in the Hall of Fame. I don't understand it. Sid also not in the Hall of Fame. So there's 4 more right there you could potentially have.
Yeah.
So to have 21 of your 30 as Hall of Famers, holy cow.
Pretty incredible.
You can kind of debate if you want to take Jimmy Snuka out. I'm not going to fight you on that one because he probably did kill somebody. But it's kind of fun to go back and see like what superstars were popular as well. Like, did you catch like Hacksaw Jim Duggan when he came out?
Oh, sure.
He got a bigger pop than Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah. Hogan, I mean, at this time, because remember, we're right on the heels of the Gulf War in 91. So he is still, like, Duggan is still, and the USA chants were all over the arena because people are still caught up in the furor of, America and the flag and having just won a war. We thought we won the war fully. Yeah, there you go. All of that stuff. So, yeah, Duggan has always been the guy that's kind of always been over. Duggan's never been, that's great, I love that. Duggan's never been one of those guys that never was over. He was always over. Would he ever win belts? That's the thing that you knew eventually he would never really hold a belt or hold a belt for a long time. But he was always over with the fans. People loved him because also he looks like a dude you'd hang out at the bar with, the kind of the gut and the beard and holding the 2x4. He's just a dude you work with. So people loved that,
It looks like a guy you definitely want on your side, dude. The guy's got hands. That's the first thing I noticed about Jim Duggan, too.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, dude. His fists are as big as a cinder block.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's unreal to see that. And from what I hear from, different wrestling podcasts I listen to, Jim Duggan is a real tough SOB.
Yeah.
That you do not want to mess with. So
I'm not surprised.
And when I was a kid, I remember, like, going to a live event, and I had, like, the Hacksaw Jim Duggan foam 2x4. And I cherished that thing until my dog tore it apart. But it was Hacksaw Jim Duggan, just seeing him getting his spot. And the Big Boss Man.
Yeah.
What people don't realize about Ray Traylor or the Big Boss Man is how, like 2 years ago, this guy was like kind of big fat guy. Like, but he could always move. Mm-hmm. He was always a very limber big guy. And watch him in this match. Like, go back and watch it when he's in there with Rick.
Yeah. Like,
he looks like $10 million. He even does like a capoeira kick, and I was like, where did this come from? Like, the Big Boss Man had slimmed. He's still wearing the stars and bars, which is another thing, but like he slimmed down so much and looks so much better in the ring. And I forgot like how much I love Boss Man as a wrestler. Yeah. Like, a lot of these guys, just going back, and I'm like, oh my god, I used to love, of course, Jake Roberts, and I even liked watching IRS getting beat up by people. IRS Bray Wyatt's dad.
Yeah,
I like watching that, and just seeing some of these old superstars. Like we mentioned, Shawn Michaels earlier, really coming into his own as a Heartbreak Kid. Kerry Von Erich, who came in at number 9, the Texas Tornado.
Right.
I'm a huge Von Erich mark, so I love seeing Kerry Von Erich in there.
Yeah.
The Repo Man
right
stuck out to me.
Right.
Repo Man and Skinner, probably 2 of the worst competitors.
Who was Skinner
in this one?
I don't even remember Skinner. When he came out, I was like, this guy looks like Wayne Grove from Heat. I don't know who the hell Skinner was.
Skinner was the guy they brought in. I think his real name is Steve Kern, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Somebody will correct me if I am. But they brought him in to feud with Bret Hart for the Intercontinental title, and they actually had a good match or two.
Right.
But that's all that he was going to be used for, and he was just a gimmick, like an alligator guy gimmick.
Right.
But so he was really never going to go further than that. But the Repo Man, just Barry Darso, formerly Demolition Smash. That's who he was previously, and then before that, Crusher Khrushchev. It's just, I think when Demolition ran its course, they didn't have anything for Barry to do.
Yeah.
So, hey, you can be the Repo Man. And then he left the Repo Man gimmick, went over to WCW, had one of the worst matches in pay-per-view history with Dustin Rhodes, and got fired for it being so terrible. So kind of a rough go of it there for the Repo Man, and still not in the Demolition's still not in the Hall of Fame. So whatever.
That's so weird to me. But also, I think one thing, Aaron, well, obviously, I think you touched on, right? This is right after Shawn Michaels puts Marty Jannetty through the barbershop.
Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks right after. Yeah, 2 weeks after.
So this is Shawn Michaels making that turn into single stardom, and this is his first pay-per-view since he did that to Marty Jannetty. But they didn't give him too much to do. He didn't really blow up in this pay-per-view just yet. They had him come in there, so I think they were still figuring out what they wanted to do with him. But you're also seeing at this time the transition of what's going to make the Attitude Era come about. You're seeing gimmick characters here, the Repo Man, the Barbarian, the Overlord, whatever these names are. You get all these names, but then you've got people like Shawn Michaels rolling through here. You still have who's like signaling the coming of the new dawn of these wrestlers. There's not many. Macho's still doing his thing at that time as well, but there aren't many of the other ones that will eventually come into those slots. But Shawn Michaels is the one that stands out as to kind of be the next generation star. He's still at that ascendancy spot as a singles wrestler, fresh off the heels of turning on Jannetty. So it's funny to watch. It was really fun to watch. It made me remember what it was like being at that time watching this. I probably watched this Royal Rumble at a friend's house. But this is the first time I'd seen it in a very, very long time. And what stuck out to me is seeing how many of these characters were still around in the 90s. I'm sure Tatanka is either right around the corner or it is happening right now in 92. Yeah. So it's fascinating to watch all that.
Yeah, the next year, Shawn and Tatanka would wrestle. So that at their next year's WrestleMania. And then we're only 3 years from Shawn winning the Royal Rumble.
Right.
And then we're 4 years away from him actually becoming WWF champion at the time.
Yeah,
right around the corner for the Rocket to be strapped to the Heartbreak Kid. I believe later this year he does win the Intercontinental title from Davey Boy. Right. So they strap that Rocket right to him. Unfortunately, due to some hullabaloo, him and Jannetty never got that WrestleMania match between each other, which would have been something else, but that's more on Jannetty than Shawn. So
yeah, was he mad about it? For some people who maybe don't know too much about Jannetty and what happened to him, obviously Shawn turned on him, but was Jannetty mad about how it went down? Was he like, was it a drug situation? Why didn't they end up having that match? I mean, it's one of the rare breakups that don't culminate in a pay-per-view match.
Yeah, they had a few matches. I mean, they had some stuff on Monday Night Raw that they did, but they never had like a big blow-off match. Right. And that was a lot of Marty, and I mean, Shawn was no saint at the time, and I think they were both just ready for a split.
Yeah. And
I think that Marty, in particular's demons, as they call it in wrestling, it's kind of cliche at this point, kind of caught up with him. Marty has a severe ankle injury that he's never really healed from. So that doesn't help. And it just was something that was never going to work. And it's hard to make a long-term plan if you don't have somebody that's going to be reliable.
Right.
When you're trying to ride this one guy to the top, you can't be saddled by another guy that's not going to help him.
Yeah, true. Well, we're going to get into the big Royal Rumble in just a second, but I want to get Aaron's thoughts on the card before we get into the Royal Rumble. As we said, it's Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan. Mean Gene, of course, handling the commentator duties on the sidelines. They're asking questions. And Sean Mooney, short-lived Sean Mooney, there at the WWF at the time as well. But this is in the Knickerbocker Arena in Albany, New York. You've got the Mountie versus Roddy Piper, as you mentioned earlier, Aaron. But then you got the Legion of Doom versus the Natural Disasters. I totally forgot that LOD was even on this pay-per-view, but it reminded me how much I did enjoy the brief run of the Natural Disasters. Tugboat being a friend of Hogan, turning on Hogan, and then joining forces with the Earthquake to become the Natural Disasters. These two guys could have ruled the tag team division for some time with their size and their abilities. And they didn't do short matches. Those guys went for a while when they had their matches.
Yeah, they could both work, which was a good thing. A lot of athletic big guys back in the day. Bam Bam Bigelow as well was another guy that could work. The best part of that match for me was actually the end when Earthquake and when Jimmy Hart started to cut the promo, and then Earthquake cut in, but you can't hear a word that Earthquake is saying because he's just like, Earthquake! And it's just like, I don't know what you said, but it sounded intimidating enough, and you're a large man. But yeah, LOD never really did it for me in WWF.
No,
I hate to say it.
I agree with you.
I was more of a Road Warriors guy than I was LOD. I think that might be a lot under on a lot of people's plates. They look cool.
Yeah.
Spike shoulder pads are cool, but I prefer them NWA all day.
I thoroughly agree with you, man. You know, sometimes people come over to the WWE or WWF and they just don't carry the same magic that they had in a previous federation. That happens all the time. And certainly we've seen it happen quite some time over the last few years. Finn Balor being a really shining example of that. So, you know, that it does happen. It does occur. Even Kevin Owens, who has had the occasional spike, hasn't fully established himself yet as a guy who could carry the strap and could be there for a while, even though he wanted to be. There's always been trouble with booking him over the last 10 years. He's a great wrestler, great worker, does the storyline so well, but they just can't seem to get that magic for him fully or consistently like they did in other federations. We also have the Orient Express, who I don't remember Kato and Tanaka in this against the rugged Owen Hart and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, also known as the New Foundation. Now, is this before he joins, becomes a Nugget and joins what's it called?
Well before the Nation of Domination.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well before that, Coco Beware and Owen Hart were high energy as a tag team.
Right.
So then Coco goes away, and then Jim, and then Brett goes on his singles run. So Jim's by himself. So hey, let's put Owen and Jim together.
Yeah.
And this run is not very long. I want to say like the New Foundation were around for like maybe 5-6 months.
Yeah.
That's something people don't realize because they've been immortalized as wrestling figures, that tag team. So I think people think Jim was in that more than he was.
Right.
Really brief run. They were below mid card as a tag team. And it was always going to be Owen Hart as the breakout star of that group. I love Jim to death. I love the Rhino. But it just was never gonna. It just was never gonna be a thing after Brett let him broke up. I feel bad for the Anvil, but that's just how it is.
Agreed. What do you know about Kato and Tanaka? Do you remember who this was?
Nothing.
Not a thing.
Not a thing. Not a thing.
I mean, I remember the Orient Express because of Mr. Fuji, but I don't remember these guys.
Yeah, Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express. That's it. That's as far as my expresses go.
Well, then we have Jameson leading out the Bushwhackers. I don't remember Jameson. I thought it was Harvey Whippleman. I don't remember Jameson at all against the the Beverly Brothers. Do you remember the Beverly Brothers? And of course, I know Leap and Lanny Papa are the Genius.
Of course, but the Beverly Brothers were actually in the AWA as the Destruction Inc. or Destruction Company, and they were jobbers then, and they were jobbers against in this match as well. So. I hated their music. I hated their look. I hated everything about them. So I guess they were good at their job in that. And Mike Enos, one half of the Beverly Brothers, just a really good athlete. He could never work anything with him because he looked so much like every other guy.
Yeah.
Just the Bushwhackers licking children in retrospect looks really bad. When you look at it through a 2019 lens, hell, when you look at it through a 1995 lens, it looks really bad.
Yeah.
And I never got down with them, man. I was never a fan.
Really? Oh, man. I always enjoyed the Bushwhackers. They were fun. But I get
Don't
it.
touch me.
I totally get it. Yeah, right. All right. Well, we should get into the main meat of this episode, and that is the Royal Rumble that happens here. 30 competitors. Going into this Royal Rumble, 2 people held the record. Well, one person held the record, Rick Martel, for 53 minutes and 14 seconds. And Greg the Hammer had just done it, for 44 minutes or something like that?
Yeah.
And so we're going into this thing, and we start off with British Bulldog and Ted DiBiase with Sensational Sherry. I think she's passed on, hasn't she, or is she still around?
Sherry went. Yeah, man. What a man. People don't realize again, like how great Sherry was not only as a manager but as a wrestler as well. Another AWA competitor. Right. She really paved the way for women's wrestling in general, and just being a great mouthpiece. I mean, look at her time with Harlem Heat.
Yeah.
Booker T has said many times how he would lean on Sherry for things. So if Booker T, 2-time Hall of Famer, 5-time WCW champion, is going to say that, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it to the bank.
And some of you may not know this, but Sherry is Rick Martel's sister, I think. Is that correct? Sherry Martel, or was it?
I don't know that for sure.
Oh, okay.
I'm not ready to put a claim on that. I don't know that for sure.
I thought she was. I always thought she was because they had the same last name, and Martel's not that popular of a last name in my opinion. But yeah,
maybe in Canada.
She was incredible, and I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, I thought she was sexy at the time. She was wearing those black pantyhose. She could fight the slit in the dress. That was part of the appeal, is that she was kind of that dangerous girl that you would find attractive, but she was also a heel all the time. And remember, this leads eventually to her managing Randy down the road, and then Elizabeth and Randy getting back together again, which I recently rewatched that whole story randomly on YouTube the other day, just because I wanted to enjoy that, and seeing that red-haired girl crying for real about the reunion of Elizabeth. But then, they battle for a little bit. Then Flair comes out with Mr. Perfect. And Monsoon reminds us, much to Bobby's chagrin, that nobody who was drawn 1 through 5 had been at the end of the Royal Rumble up to that point. And Flair comes in at number 3 at this point with Mr. Perfect.
A great job by Gorilla noticing, or keep bringing that point up, because it keeps sticking in your mind. Like, there's no way that Rick's going to win. There's no way that Rick's going to win. And then when he does, it makes it seem that much better when he does win.
Yeah, incredible.
Excellent work.
Sags of the Nasty Boys. I don't think those guys are going to hit the Hall of Fame anytime soon. He's quickly eliminated though by Davey Boy Smith. I think he's only in there for like a minute or so before he's tossed out, maybe even less. And then we get Haku. Do you remember much about Haku?
Of course, the Rock's uncle, Haku of the famous Anawahi family. Ming and WCW. I actually remember him more as Ming because that was more in my time span. But King Haku. There's a famous story that he bit a cop's nose off or something like that.
What?
A bit. Yeah. You don't mess with Haku, man. I'm telling you, there's stories out there. I'll have to send you some of Haku doing legendary stuff, like breaking handcuffs. Like, you don't mess with Haku. Man.
You know what's funny? The Rock is probably the runt of the litter. That's what's insane.
That is insane.
Right?
You're probably right about that. I saw his daughter earlier or late last year at the Performance Center working out. Yeah, The Rock might be the run of the litter. She's Simone Johnson. Look out for her.
Yeah. And then we get Shawn Michaels coming in at number 6. Haku gets eliminated by Flair eventually, but Shawn Michaels comes in at number 6. And then at number 7 is El Matador Tito Santana. And here's where we get the first cut of racist crack from Bobby Heenan saying that Shawn Michaels is making guacamole of Tito Santana. Then he tries to cover it by saying Tito's wearing green tights, and that's why he said it. But Gorilla calls him out with going, "Hey now!" He does that kind of stuff to push back on Bobby. But of course, this is classic Bobby. But once again, here's Shawn coming in at 6. He's going to last for a little bit, but not really stand out. And then eventually him and the Matador are going to eliminate each other. But do you remember Tito at all and how what he did in the WWF at the time?
Yeah, I remember him, unfortunately, as the El Matador, because that was his wrestling figure when I was a kid. So that's the one that I saw, El Matador, Arriba!
Yeah.
And I know that he was the Intercontinental Champion. I know he was a tag team champion with Rick Martel and Strikeforce. But yeah, Tito Santana for me, for the most part, El Matador. I've gone, of course, I've since gone back and watched older stuff that he's done. But as a kid, I just knew him as, hey, that's the bullfighter guy.
Right. For me, it was like, look, there's a Latino wrestler. We didn't have
have
luchadores when I was growing up on the WWF. We just didn't have them. Or I don't think, if I remember correctly, they weren't down in Georgia Championship Wrestling either. So getting a chance to cheer for a Latino wrestler, especially Tito. Tito was great in the 80s. He was always there for the IC belt, occasionally conversations about going for the main strap, but he was always there. And then, of course, him and Rick Martel, that was a great tag team that when it broke up, I was like heartbroken when they broke up because Strikeforce was also kind of a kick-ass name at the time for the 80s. So to see him going into the El Matador thing is where my mind or my eyes opened up to a little bit of the, in my opinion, a little bit of the cop-out racism that occurs sometimes when they come up with characters for Latino wrestlers that aren't luchadores. And, we saw this later on with the whole, the John Deere and all that jazz. It just wasn't a big thing for me. So seeing this here, I always hated him as the El Matador because I thought it was a bit of a cop-out for me.
I can't speak to that as I'm not Latino, but I can imagine. I could imagine that it's pretty terrible to see that, as I'm sure it was to hear the Orient Express.
Yeah,
right. Let's move along here. Jeez.
All right, well, let's go to the next three. We've got the Barbarian coming out, the Texas Tornado, and the Repo Man. You mentioned Repo Man earlier, but really it's Kerry Von Erich here. What did you think about his run in the WWF? Because, I mean, Aaron, this is another guy who really made his name at another federation in Texas from a legendary family, the Von Erichs. And I think he is the shining star of that family. Is that right, or was it Kevin?
He was the shining star of the family only because his brother David Von Erich unfortunately passed away at a young age due to a stomach ailment. And you know, if you go back, it's funny because like we talked about Ryan Satin earlier in the show. Yeah. Something that Ryan and I bonded over early was our enjoyment of World Class Championship Wrestling, WCCW. Because you go back on the network, it's all there, and you just see how much that influenced the current product. This was the first place that had entrance themes. They would all enter through the crowd. The way that the cameras were placed around, they put mics in the ring. Like, it was just all different in WCCW. And Kerry Von Erich, former NWA champion, former WCCW champion, comes in on like this is the tail end of Kerry Von Erich's career, because at this time he's already had the motorcycle injury, which took his foot. So he has a prosthetic foot. And a lot of people, for some reason, didn't know that back then. But yeah, he had a prosthetic foot. He did beat Mr. Perfect for the Intercontinental Championship, which was huge because Mr. Perfect was massive at the time. Yeah. But he just never garnered that same success that he did in World Class. A lot to do with, again, demons. Yeah. And that's, unfortunately, it's just a tragic story of all the Von Erichs. And Kevin seems to be the only one of the brothers that's, you know, unfortunately still around. Yeah. Kerry Von Erich also took his own life, facing a massive prison sentence for some writing some illegal prescriptions. So it's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, the business of professional wrestling is littered with people who can, you know, sometimes give in to their demons and unfortunately end up in bad situations. And it's even more tragic when you think about how legendary the Von Erich family is. You know, they could have been just as established as the Hart family is in the eyes of many professional wrestling fans, you know.
Very similar.
With a legacy, with these consistent relatives who are successful. You could argue the Maivia family is the same way. All of those, how many people connected to that were successful. The Von Erich should have been. It's always tragic, man. It's always because it looked like they all had all the tools they needed. Good-looking, young dudes, flowing hair. The ladies loved them. They were great in the ring. Like, what else did you need? But it was interesting, too, when I noticed this time, Aaron, Monsoon never calls him by his name. He just calls him the Texas Tornado the whole time. I don't remember him saying, I wonder if that was a WWF decision by Vince. Like, don't use his name. He's only the Texas Tornado.
Yeah. They tried to get away from it, but sometimes it would slip out. They would say Texas Tornado Kerry Von Erich or something like that.
Right.
It would slip out from time to time. I did want to slide in a fun fact.
Yeah, please.
That the Von Erich's patriarch, Fritz Von Erich, was actually trained by Bret Hart's dad, Stu Hart. Oh, wow. So you actually have that connection right there. So yeah, the Harts and the Von Erichs are very similar. Yeah. Unfortunately, tragedies in both families.
All right, now this is the first 10 people who are in Repo Man, obviously kind of rounding out the top 10. Anything about these matchups within this frame from number 1 to number 10 that stands out for you in terms of the wrestling that was going on in the ring?
No, it's kind of slow going. I really liked what Bulldog was doing before he was eliminated. Him and Flair were having some really good back and forth, and it's kind of hard to get that out of Davey sometimes. So when you can get it out of him, you kind of realize how good Davey actually was when he wanted to be.
Right.
So that's what stuck out for me. Flair putting on a clinic and Davey Boy showing up.
Yeah, and Flair pulling out all the stops. The walk, fall in the face, the whole riding the rope, good. The whole 9. He's there.
But if you also notice, like the fans, like you think these fans like are so WWF ingrained, especially they're in New York.
Right.
And Flair's hitting the chops and you're hearing the crowd, woo, every time he's hitting them. Yeah. So that just shows you how popular Ric Flair was.
Also, how great the fans are in New York for wrestling. I mean,
Definitely.
They know it.
Definitely.
And that's the one place you got to bring it, or you will get ridden out of that stadium if you don't know what you're doing. All right, we move on to one of these guys who's probably on the tail end of his career. As you were saying, that's the Hammer Greg. They call him the Hammer Greg Valentine. 44 minutes and 20 seconds the year before he'd been in that Royal Rumble, and he comes in here at number 11. You know, this is the end, isn't it? It feels like he's like near the end, you know? Even Gorilla makes a joke about the fact that it takes him 44 minutes to warm up.
This is post Rhythm and Blues. This
Oh,
is
right.
post tag team run. This is post everything for the Hammer. I like Greg the Hammer
Yeah.
Valentine. My best friend's dad, like his favorite wrestlers are hilarious. Like he loves Arn Anderson, which really isn't that funny because it makes sense. But
Yeah.
he also loves Doink the Clown. And his third favorite wrestler is Greg the Hammer Valentine. And he said Greg the Hammer Valentine just looked like a really tough guy. So I really gravitated towards him. And it's funny because him and Flair had classic battles back in the
Oh,
day,
yeah.
and him and Piper, and to see them all kind of scrap again was really cool. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember Greg being a big deal in the 80s. Obviously, that's where he really made his name and being one of those guys. He kind of never was like the top dude, but he was always
Right.
right around the top guys, always. So he was always a possibility. Nikolai Volkov comes in next, but he's eliminated quickly here before the big boss man comes in. Anything to say about, I mean, this is near the end for Volkov, I think, as well. All these kind of 80s
Yeah,
stalwarts are nearing their end here in the early 90s.
yeah. I think Volkov was way past it even at this time. So later as a comedy character with the $1 Million Man, I really liked
Oh,
him. But
yeah.
here, I mean, nothing of note here.
Right, right. All right, Boss Man comes in. Greg the Hammer's eliminated. Repo Man is eliminated. Davey Boy Smith is eliminated. The Texas Tornado is eliminated. And then Shawn Michaels and Santana are all eliminated together. This was kind of an interesting run right during this time here, Aaron. I guess they were just kind of cleaning house out of the ring to kind of start it all over again, right? They had hit their maximum, do you think?
Yeah, I think once Roddy Piper hit at 15, that's when it really started to pick up because it made me laugh too because Bobby Heenan was like, all right, everybody's eliminated, so Ric Flair wins,
Yeah.
right? Like, that was so good. And then Piper comes out
Yeah.
and we all start again. And after that, it's just star after star after star and the Berserker. But, star after star after star after star after that. And it really picked up from here.
Can you talk about that, Aaron, a little bit? Like, if you're going to book a Royal Rumble, you got to figure out the ebbs and the flows and the rhythms of a match like this because you have so many people coming in. Did it surprise you that at this number, they wiped out just about everybody except for Flair at this moment? Or did it make sense to you, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like just booking a regular match. You have your ebbs and you have your flows. And now, okay, like we brought the crowd up with all these guys fighting each other.
Yeah.
Now we got to bring them back down with Rick just in the ring by himself. And then now we're going to bring him slowly back up again when Piper comes out with all that energy.
Right.
It's just that part of that roller coaster ride. Pacing a Royal Rumble is very difficult, evidenced by, I was watching the 2017 Royal Rumble the other day. That's the one where Nakamura won. And it's down to the final four for like 15 minutes.
Oof.
And it's extremely boring. Like the whole match grinds to a halt. So you have to kind of take it piece by piece by piece until you get down to that final three, final four. And I think that's another reason people hold this Rumble in such high regard because it's done so well.
That's a great point you bring up, Aaron. Absolutely. Because it almost seems like, let me turn my sound off. It almost seems like a Royal Rumble is almost like a mini pay-per-view. The match itself is a mini pay-per-view because you have all these kind of matchups of people who have former rivalries or people you've seen before fight or maybe that you've wanted to see fight before. And then, like you said, you've got to bring the crowd down a little bit, have those like mid pay-per-view matches that are meant for you to go get food or chill out a little bit. And then you got to ramp them all back up again into the bigger stuff. And you're right. I mean, Hercules is kind of like, like we said, he's at the tail end, but it's him, at this point, it's him, Big Boss Man, Barbarian, and Flair. But then Barbarian and Hercules get eliminated, which leaves Flair and the Big Boss Man. And then Boss Man is eliminated, like you said, and it's just Flair here in this situation. And then Rowdy shows up, and it's just the two of them. And this is two old school classic guys going at it.
Yeah, I mean, look at the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, six guys. You got Jake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, IRS, Jimmy Snuka, Undertaker, Macho Man. Like, holy crap, dude.
Right.
We just took it up 10 notches from Repo Man. That quick. And it's just, and you've got a young Undertaker.
Yes.
You've got a young, the young hungry Undertaker. Macho Man and Jake have an issue.
Yeah.
So that's always going to heat it up.
Right.
Piper and Flair always have an issue. So they're going to heat it up. And it just, from this point on, it was on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, Snake slides out of the ring as soon as Savage shows up because Savage comes
so
tearing ass into the ring to try to take care of business here. But you had Hacksaw come in, like you said, he got a massive pops. IRS, I love what Heenan said. He doesn't run to the ring. He walks. I think he said that about IRS. He takes his time getting there. Erwin R. Shyster. Snuka kind of taking his time as well. But then you're right. And it's a great point you bring up, Aaron. It's a young Undertaker. I don't remember in the chronology if him and Hogan have fought yet for the title or where it's at.
This was right after that. That's the reason that the reason that the WWF title is on the line in this match is because of the Undertaker had beaten Hulk Hogan with the help of Ric Flair for the title. Then Hogan beat the Undertaker by kind of cheating. So then Hogan got stripped of the title, and that's where. So it's just right after all that happened.
Yeah. But you're right. This is where some great stuff goes down. Jake slides back into the ring, goes after Savage, and all these guys just going at each other throughout. And Undertaker has some great moments. I think it was interesting too. I said this. I wrote this down. I said this is incredible seeing these three legends still in their prime. And that's Jake the Snake, Roddy, and Flair. But there's even some outside work with a head on the railing, and I don't remember if that had been happening in the WWF at that time. Outside work with railings, and possible blood, that kind of stuff, which had been part of the other federations. I didn't know if it had been happening quite as extensively in the WWF. Obviously, we'd had the Rick Steamboat and the bell in the neck and that kind of stuff, but we hadn't had someone like go outside and take a head onto the railing that I can remember. What about you?
I think the last time I remember, or the time I would remember seeing that before would be, I believe it was Bossman and Hogan did a spot like that where Hogan held up Bossman on the guardrail and did something like that. But yeah, it was rare back then. I mean, WWF didn't have their first table spot until I think 97.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you think of how many times like tables have been used since,
right? Like
4 years later, we're jumping off 15-foot ladders. But I mean, like, it's kind of crazy to think how quickly it evolved from, I mean, look at something like AEW or ECW where we're jumping into the crowd.
Yeah.
Like, it's not far off from 1992 where we are here.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it was very rare back then.
Yeah, and then Jake is eliminated, but not Savage when they both go out of the ring because Jake goes over the top rope while Savage goes through the mid rope and then gets thrown back into the ring, or Savage runs back into the ring, not eliminated, which Heenan and Monsoon make a strong issue and point out. Anything surprise you about these guys, or any of the wrestling stands out from those legends, this run of legends we just saw?
Just that the Undertaker, being as young as he was, like holding his own in there, and they really talk him up. Like, they talk him up about being tall, about being intimidating, about being strong. So everything they do, Gorilla and Bobby are putting over how good the Undertaker is.
Right.
And if you're going to be in a Rumble match with all of these legends, all like 17 other legends, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a ringing endorsement.
I love it. I enjoy the hell out of this. All right, now we're moving into a little bit of the lessers. We have the Berserker coming in.
You could say that.
At 22. By the way, at this time, after the Berserker comes in, I wrote this down, Aaron. I love the double choke from Taker and Piper on Flair. I don't think I had seen that at that time, where Piper joined in, and then, of course, Taker comes up and picks up Piper by his neck while he's also holding Flair. And that's a great point you just brought up here. And they're talking Taker up because I guess in their minds, Vince was already lining Taker up to be a big deal. He probably saw the pop that he'd gotten against Hogan, the response that people had about Hogan cheating to beat him, this idea of that. And he probably saw where, was it Mark Meadows? Is that his name? Where Mark was going to go, right?
Mark Calloway.
Mark Calloway. Sorry.
Yeah, but I believe at WrestleMania 8 he goes up against Jake.
All right.
So he's right there. WrestleMania 9, Giant Gonzalez, and then so on. So we're not actually far off from Undertaker being champion again.
Yeah.
But Undertaker was one of those guys from the moment that he debuted. The very rare case of someone when they debut, top guy, already a top guy,
right?
Because he's right in there with Ric Flair. He debuted with $1 Million Man. So at the time, $1 Million Man was on top.
Yeah.
So you've got a debut with a top guy. I mean, Undertaker never stopped for as many years as he's been going.
Yeah,
which is incredible.
I dug it. Then Flair. Flair cross. Oh, at this point, after the Berserker comes in, and they wrestle for a little bit, Flair crosses Valentine's numbers. At this point, he has gone over 44 minutes and 21 seconds is what Hammer's time was. Yeah, 44 minutes and 20 seconds. So they're keeping track of this, right? And of course, Bobby is full nuts right at this point, full crazy about worrying about Flair here. And then Virgil comes in and the Iron Sheik comes in, led by Colonel Mustafa. No one reacted to Virgil coming in, I don't think. Still around, Virgil, still selling stuff at random places.
I'll probably see him at WrestleMania this year, probably trying to sell me an autograph for $20. It happens. I saw him last time, so it happens.
Okay. Talk to me about Mustafa here now. Is this Iron Sheik, or was he did he change his name, or am I misremembering this?
Well, I'll have to cite something to wrestle about this because Bruce and Conrad just did an episode on the Iron Sheik talking about this.
Oh.
And it was basically because Iron Sheik at this point, I mean, the guy couldn't really wrestle. He had bad hips. That's not good for a wrestler. And they just wanted, Sheik was always a loyal guy, so they wanted to do something with Sheik. So they put him with Sergeant Slaughter, and then when that kind of ran its course, you don't really have anything for Sheik to do. So he's just, he's Colonel Mustafa, and then he's not here for much longer. So I think in this point, he was just a body to fill in for the Rumble.
Yeah.
Brian Knobbs was actually, of the Nasty Boys, was supposed to be in the Rumble, but got into an altercation a couple days before and was not able to be in it.
Wow.
So he might have taken his spot for all we know. But yeah, Sheik way down here, way past Sheiky, basically.
Is it General Adnan who's leading him out? Is that who that is?
General Adnan, yeah, some other guy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, remember this is now, and this is like what? Where is Hogan and Slaughter around this time? Didn't they?
That was last WrestleMania.
Right, last WrestleMania was Hogan and Slaughter, and I'm sure Aaron knows this or can give us a little more background information. They had to move the location because there was legitimate fears that there was going to be some kind of bombing or an attack there for this match. That the kayfabe had really kind of gone off the rails with this situation.
Yeah, the Gulf War was going on, and Sergeant Slaughter, who didn't have real military service, which is something that I actually found out recently, which blew my mind. He turned heel. He was an Iraqi sympathizer or Iran, and it was just not good at all. And he was getting threats. His family was getting threats, and they had to move certain events around, like even the WrestleMania venue to. Sergeant Slaughter had to come in blacked out limos. Yeah. Like they had to really take precautions here because people were really serious about hurting Sergeant Slaughter, which is insane. Yeah. Thinking about that today, could you imagine wanting to, I don't know, bomb Bobby Lashley because he stole Rusev's wife? Like that's insane.
Yeah, but I mean, this is also, we're only a few years removed from people like stabbing wrestlers as they walk to the ring. Heel wrestlers, there have been a lot of stories about that stuff where people took it way too seriously and weren't sure if it was real or fake. And Vince was very clear about not admitting that it was a fake sport until, of course, the steroids trial and all that kind of jazz. But before then, Vince had made his money off people thinking this was real. So this was kind of what last year, the last WrestleMania at this time, kind of showcased that, how dangerous that could really be in the long run, and especially to his wrestler. And kudos to, I mean, you want to talk about a company guy, man. Sergeant Slaughter has been there from the 80s to what? Just if he's not still there now, until recently.
Still there.
He's still there. And that's almost 4 decades of service to a company, and he has played all the different roles that you can play. Occasionally gets trotted out to wrestle a match, and it's always fun to see him. And I think people were so happy because I thought he was great as a heel. Oh my God, this was genius, because I'm in my 20s and I understand, like, this is brilliant heel to have him turn heel of all the people in the world. And of course, this is a few years before Hogan does it, which I never saw coming. Slaughter doing it was a massive surprise.
That's an interesting point that I actually never thought of. Like, could you say that Sergeant Slaughter was the precursor to like an NWO Hogan to make it work?
Why not? I don't think there was...
That's a good point.
I don't think there was anyone who was as face as Slaughter was, especially because, like, right, like you said, people thought he'd served in the military. People like rallied around him. He was like an American hero in the WWF at the time. And I say WWF for people who are listening because it wasn't WWE at the time, or people who are watching. It's WWF at the time. And so that's the thing that's so fascinating to think about, because Backlund turning heel, that wasn't as big of a deal as it was when Slaughter did it. And that is proven by people's reaction to it, having to move the match, him coming in blackened cars, that kind of stuff. Insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's unreal to think that a guy like that, even going back in the day, I remember Sergeant Slaughter going up against like Pat Patterson.
Right.
And like having these like drawn out bloody matches. And I remember the promo where Sergeant Slaughter turned back good.
Oh my God.
And he was sitting there and he was just shaking, and they're like, "What's the deal, Sarge?" He says, "I want my country back. Like, I will learn, or I will do what I can to get my country back." And I'm like, this is amazing.
Thoroughly agree, man. I remember that promo too. All right, so then we get Rick Martel, who ironically comes in at the perfect time, and this is great timing to try to stop Flair from breaking his own record, because Flair was less than 3 minutes away from breaking when Rick Martel came in at number 25. Iron Sheik gets eliminated here, and Piper, who is quietly doing his thing, is in at 25 minutes plus at this time, plus having already wrestled the Mountie to defend his, or I mean, to win the IC championship. So, I mean, I know we love what Flair did here, but Piper was in there for quite some time as well.
I can't hate the hot rod for nothing, man. There's no hate in my heart for the Rowdy Roddy Piper. But I got to say something real quick.
Break it down.
I'm going to scoot close to the mic. I'm going to look into the camera, and I'm going to say this. Rick Martel needs to be in the damn Hall of Fame. He's earned it. There's no one that's been more consistent back in the day. AWA World Heavyweight Champion, Intercontinental Champion. No, he wasn't Intercontinental Champion. Scratch that. Tag Team Champion. Rick Martel deserves his spot. All around nice dude, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Put him in the Hall, damn it.
I don't disagree with you, man. People loved him. People loved him as a face or as a heel. He made everything work. When he was a face on Strikeforce and the clapping and the big white teeth and everything, it was great. And then when he turned heel, the model Rick Martel was incredible. Brilliant.
Arrogance.
Right? The arrogance was incredible.
So good. He has one of the, I'm sorry, I'm a wrestling figure mark, as you can see behind me, but one of the best wrestling figures that Mattel has made to this day is the Rick Martel model action figure. It is unbelievable. One of the best there is.
Yeah, let's run it down, and because I agree with you, dude. Martel was the AWA World Heavyweight Champion. He was the NWA Georgia Tag Team Championship. He was NWA Canadian Tag Team Champion, NWA British Commonwealth Heavyweight Champion, then the Pacific Northwest Heavyweight Champion, and he was a Stampede International Tag Team Champion, USA Heavyweight Championship, WCW World Television Champion.
Put him in the Hall.
Yeah,
man. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, this is and the tag team. He won the tag team title 3 times. With Tony Gurria twice, and I remember that was my team, Rick Martel and Tony Gurria, right next to Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas. Those were my two favorite face tag teams at the time, and then of course with Tito Santana one time as well. So yeah, this is an incredible wrestler with a hell of a legacy, and it's ridiculous and he had 2 stints in the WWE, so it's ridiculous to me that he doesn't get a shot, and he's winning belts in the WCW in '98. This is a lifer, man.
Put him in the Hall.
Yeah.
Put him in the Hall. He's Canadian. Like, why is he not in the Hall? Fun fact also, Booker T won his first singles title from Rick Martel. We love Booker T here. So
tell me you didn't
I'm always going to shout out Book.
Tell me you didn't just say that. All right. We're in at 26, and then finally, what's been teased throughout this whole thing with Bobby saying, ooh, Hogan's getting a real good number. Hogan's getting lucky here. Hogan finally comes out at number 26. And immediately after, it goes right after Flair and Taker. It was weird to see Hogan coming out at 26. The fans were excited, but they weren't what I remember the fans used to be when Hogan came out for anything.
Yeah, he comes out, he rips the shirt, and throws it at IRS, and then IRS will work for the rest of the match, which was weird. But man, I agree with you. Like, it just wasn't a Hogan pop. It wasn't a Hogan crowd. I think New York was the litmus test to where Vince was probably like, this isn't working. Right. We need to go with something else.
Right.
And it's hard to watch because it's, it was a Hulkamaniac. Everybody was a Hulkamaniac.
Yep.
Everybody liked the 96 Bulls as well. Like it's just something that's in your brain. And to see him come out there and it's just not well received because, through rose-colored glasses, I'm like, man, everybody loved Hulk Hogan all the time.
Yeah.
And then you go back there and see this and it's like, okay, maybe they didn't. Maybe fans were smarter back then than we didn't give them credit for.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the fans were becoming more knowledgeable as we go into the 90s about what they wanted to see and what they didn't want to see. I think I thoroughly, if they hadn't done the if the WWE hadn't done the Attitude Era, there's no way it would still be around as a company. If they hadn't made that decision, they were sunk. WCW was poised and ready to take everything they had built and just take it all away from them and move forward and have the WWF die a painful death. But they made the adjustment, and I think Vince deserves all the credit for seeing what WCW did with NWO and then quickly putting in the Attitude Era. Of course, ECW, Paul Heyman, all of that was happening at the same time as well, kind of bubbling up under the surface. So there was this hunger in the 90s for something more brutal, more graphic, more heels, face turns, those kinds of things were really starting to be what the fans wanted to see.
What a wild circumstance! Like it's so cool that the epicenter of like so many tangents come off of this Rumble in 1992 into 93. The WWF landscape in 1993 is completely different, which is outstanding. Yokozuna is the winner of the next year's Royal Rumble, which is another good one that I don't think a lot of people realize. Ric Flair is also in that Royal Rumble, but does not win. But it's just, you go from Hogan, Flair, Savage to next year, you've got Yoko, Brett, and Shawn.
Right.
Like we've already moved on, which is, it's wild.
Starting to make that turn. Yeah. Undertaker is eliminated by Hogan in a bit of a surprise with just a clothesline, and he just stands there and stares at him. Then the Berserker is eliminated, and then Virgil and Hacksaw are eliminated right before Skinner comes in, the alligator man. Is there anything you know about this guy? I know we're at the hour mark, so we probably have to wrap up in a little bit, but like, what do you know about Skinner, man?
Just the whole Bret Hart thing. He was brought in to feud with Bret Hart. I believe he was a trainer as well. I think he's a wrestling trainer. So just a guy you pluck, like, we're going to need you for a couple months. And
he doesn't end up doing anything else, does he, Aaron, after this?
No, not that I know of. Nothing of note.
Okay.
No.
All right. Sergeant Slaughter comes in number 28. Skinner is eliminated really quickly. And I guess maybe it's on the heels of Crocodile Dundee. Is that why this guy is created? I don't know.
You might be right. You might be right there, but I believe he was billed as being from Florida, so I don't know how that... Gator, Croc, whatever.
It's all there. So at this point, you have Slaughter coming in. You have Slaughter, Savage, Piper, Hogan, Flair, Martel, and IRS. And Flair breaks the record during this section of the match and crosses 55 minutes. Incredible stuff from Ric Flair. And it wasn't like he was, like we've seen nowadays sometimes in these Royal Rumbles, Aaron, he wasn't running out of the ring and staying out of the ring for 20 minutes. That guy was battling or laying on the ground in the ring and then taking the bumps and the hits and everything possible. So he was an active guy in this thing for 55 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is with that these days. That drives me insane to what, like, when they slide out of the ring like that, especially the Women's Rumble from a few years ago. All they did was stay outside the ring. It drove me insane. But, I mean, listen to what you just said. Like, all those people, they were in the ring at the same time. Oh, my God. Give me that any day of the week, man. Oh, geez, please. More of that.
Yeah. Sid Justice comes in at 29, finally, and this is where this is all going to start to take shape. Sid comes. I think Sid's a face at this time, if I'm correct, because people are cheering.
He is a baby face.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, sorry, go ahead, Aaron. Sorry.
He had just filled in. It was a 6-man tag, and it was Sid, Hogan, and Warrior versus, I think, $1 Million Man and a couple other people. And Sid was like their third partner. Mm-hmm. So he was kind of getting that rub from those two. But this is where they kind of they wanted to move away from, Sid being a babyface to a heel here.
Right. And we see that start to develop as this match goes along. So number 30 comes in, the Warlord, with Harvey Whippleman, who I remember with Kamala, the Ugandan giant, but he comes in with the Warlord. And you're right, the Warlord it looks like Stone Cold Steve Austin, like, went like this and just kind of blew the hell up. It was insane to see him walk down.
Yeah, it looks like Stone Cold ate Hercules, yeah.
Well, one quick thing. The Berserker, this guy he looked like he could really move in that ring. He did have the weird kind of big man thing where he does this kind of stuff, but he could actually move around the ring. What happened to the Berserker? What did he become? Do you remember?
He was trained with the Minnesota guys, so
Okay.
Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude, those guys in that Minnesota camp. And from what I heard recently, just a few days ago on another Conrad Thompson podcast, Berserker is, I believe he's on his fourth DUI or something like that. So,
damn it!
Unfortunately, one of those. Yeah, just another sad story.
That's a shame, man. Because there's so many big dudes in here that could have been successful and left a legacy in the WWE, but it's really Taker who is the one that stands out in the long run, of all these large dudes that are in the ring. And this includes Sid Justice, because obviously Sid breaks that ankle of his just a few years later, right? And that's it. And so anyway, let's go back to that. So Slaughter's eliminated at this point. We cross over an hour, and then IRS is eliminated. Warlord is eliminated pretty quickly himself. Roddy is in there for over 35 minutes before he's eliminated with Rick Martel together. Then it's Hogan, Flair, Justice, and Savage. And by the way, Randy Savage has been wrestling this whole time as well, doing his thing and having giving a great show. Savage is then eliminated by Flair, and then it's Flair, Justice, and Hogan. And here's where all hell breaks loose. Aaron, what do you think? Take us into this ending, man.
And it happens quicker than I remembered it happening, because Hulk Hogan's trying to eliminate Ric Flair, and when that happens, Sid comes up from behind Hulk and dumps him.
Yeah.
And dumps Hulk, and people are like, I don't know how to react. Should I be happy? Should I be sad? But people seem to be okay with it. And Hogan, in an unbelievable dick heel move, grabs onto Sid's arm, and Flair dumps Sid to win the match. Which at the time, even as a kid, I was like, hey, wait a minute. Yeah. That's cheating. But yeah, Ric Flair becomes your world heavyweight champion with a tear in his eye.
Yeah.
The Nature Boy becomes the WWF champion for the first of 2 reigns as WWF champion. And chaos, man. It comes quickly in that match.
It does, actually. You're right. And it's funny because this is something Hogan would have gotten away with. But Sid didn't. But Hogan was pissed that Sid did it to him. Hogan would have absolutely done this to Sid at this time to stay champion. So remember, as you said earlier, he had just cheated to beat Undertaker. So for him to cheat again on Sid, it was interesting because the fans are really booing him. And Flair doesn't get... So Flair wins this thing over an hour in the ring, doesn't get to do a promo afterwards in the ring, doesn't get to celebrate with the title. Hogan comes... By the way, Sid gets eliminated right in front of Hogan, but Sid doesn't get into it with Hogan at the time, moves past Hogan. Hogan runs into the ring and chases Flair out of the ring, and Flair leaves with Mr. Perfect. And then the Hogan and Justice thing happens. Hogan and Sid Justice, Sid Vicious, whatever. They then get into the verbal and physical confrontation that has to get broken up by a bunch of referees and former wrestlers who were part of the administration at the time. I remember this being a big deal.
Yeah, what happened? We're leaning towards obviously that it's going to be, Hogan and Sid look like it might not be resolved, and we're just going to jump from Hogan to Flair.
Yeah.
Like we're going to do Hogan and Flair, and of course at the time, you're kidding me? That's Rock Austin. That's huge. Right. That's a huge monumental match, and for whatever reason, rumors have come about that it was bad house show business because they would do Hogan and Flair on the house show loop, and people just didn't react. I can't imagine that happened. Yeah. I can't imagine what happened. I think it might have been, and I'm just speculating, it's just me, saying like Hogan a little bit of, that doesn't work for me, brother. I think it might have been a little bit of that, and we end up with Ric Flair versus Macho Man Randy Savage at WrestleMania, which I'm not complaining, and we end up with Hogan and Sid, which ends in just ridiculously.
Yeah. And
it was the main event. The world title was not the main event. The main event was Hogan and Sid, which ended in the Ultimate Warrior returning, which, whatever. But it's weird to think that Ric Flair, as WWF champion coming over from WCW, such a big deal, is immediately an afterthought.
Yeah.
immediately.
That's what struck me watching this. I didn't remember that he didn't get a chance to celebrate in the ring or get interviewed or anything, that it immediately became about Hogan and Sid. And here's a guy who just went an hour in the ring. But this is one of the funny things about Flair, man. And I wonder what your thoughts are on this, Aaron. I know people have come, like Jericho's been very clear in the past. I've been vocal about how Flair didn't book him right. How, he had Flair could have his favorites sometimes when he was doing stuff at WCW, but Flair also sometimes will play the lesser in a situation that you're surprised to see him do. There is no way Hogan would have agreed to be an afterthought after he'd gone an hour in the Royal Rumble to win the belt so that Flair and Sid Vicious could get into some storyline. There's no way Hogan would have done that. What is it about Flair that puts him in these positions that we've seen multiple times in the WWE?
I think it's that Rick understands that to move the business forward, you have to help get others over. And if you watch that Royal Rumble match, it has a lot of nuance to it that you may not catch. Ric Flair is throwing chops at people and then begging off. He's like begging off Hercules Hernandez, a guy that's like past his prime at this point. And it's like Ric Flair's begging off Hercules, making him look strong and making Ric Flair look like a wimp. But we know that Rick is the more conditioned guy, and it's just stuff like that. It's a little piece that makes Ric Flair the best ever, one of the best ever. If not, you can argue it all day.
Yeah.
But it's just little things like that Rick understands what we have to do to go forward. I think Hulk was more like big box office. Hulk Hogan's the Michael Bay, if you will, and Ric Flair is a Denis Villeneuve of the wrestling business. I know you appreciated both of those references.
I respect that.
but I think that he's more of a nuanced wrestler than Hulk Hogan is. And I'm not saying some people have their flavor. Some people love the hell out of some Transformers movies.
Hell.
And some people want a little Blade Runner or Rival in their life.
Yeah.
I get it. It's cool. It's fine.
Yeah.
So it's just different strokes for different folks.
I think it's more that Hogan is Tom Cruise and Flair is like Daniel Day-Lewis. There's just a difference in the approach, and people seem to respect. Both of them have respect, but I think people seem to respect what Daniel Day has done a little bit more overall. And although Flair is still doing it, for God's sakes, at his old age, which drives me insane. Anyway, okay, so Hogan and Justice go at it, and they do the thing, Lisa, and people are booing Hogan when he starts to do the classic cupping of the ear. People start to boo him, and that is the fascinating thing about it. And then we quickly go to the back with Mean Gene, and talking all the stuff with Flair, and Flair saying that he is excited to be the champion. Perfect saying, "We hate to say I told you so, but we told you so." Gene telling that guy to put out the cigarette, and then Flair talking about how much he loves. This is not a classic promo, but Flair is super passionate after over an hour in the ring. It's incredible.
Just the one line with the tear in my eye. That's all you need, man.
Yeah.
Classic Rick. You gotta love it. And to see all the players there, Bobby, Rick, Mr. Perfect, Mean Gene, and so many of them are not with us anymore.
Yeah.
Just to see, man, like it's just, this is what makes wrestling awesome, is stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the end of the Royal Rumble. As Aaron said, this leads into Sid and Hogan down the road, and of course Flair and Savage down the road as well for the title. What's your overall final thoughts about this Royal Rumble, Aaron, as we wrap up here this first episode of Strong Style?
I think it is. I think the fact that people say that it is the best Royal Rumble of all time is definitely warranted. Going back and watching it, I kind of I think 93 is really underrated, and people should really watch 93 as well.
Okay.
But this is like a streak of good Rumbles, like 90, 91, 92, all good stuff. But just Ric Flair being Ric Flair and all the legends that were in this, it puts it over the top. It's everything you expect it to be. The undercard is complete garbage.
Yeah.
Skip over the undercard and go straight to the Rumble. It's worth your time just to watch Ric Flair kick so much ass.
Yeah, and the thing that kept occurring to me as I was watching this, Aaron, I couldn't shake it, is this is the transition time. But ironically, this is also when the Rumble made its name. Like, there was the novelty of it at the beginning, this idea of every 2 minutes a wrestler. When it was presented, people loved this pay-per-view. But this run, 91, 92, 93, is when the Rumble goes to rival almost WrestleMania as one that people look forward to as wrestling fans to see what is gonna happen, who's gonna win, who's gonna show up, that kind of stuff. And this is before they did stunt casting, before Diesel shows up out of the blue or whatever. This is like everybody is current and everybody is jumping into this thing, whether they're past their prime or in their prime or beginning their prime. They're all in this thing, and this is like, ironically, when the Rumble is really at its best, is right when the business is starting to turn away from the gimmicks and the 80s stuff into embracing more of the Attitude Era, as we're about to see in like 3 years.
Yeah, we're not far off here. The whole landscape changes. We go from Savage, Hogan, Flair to, I said earlier, Brett, Yoko. Lex Luger's here.
Luger, right.
Shawn Michaels gets a push. Undertaker emerges even further. Yeah. Diesel comes in. Razor comes in pretty soon. Jeff Jarrett. So we're getting a lot of new stuff here. And unfortunately, we get Men on a Mission and some other stuff like that doesn't work. And that's kind of what almost derailed the company. But I kind of look at it right now. I look at a Rumble like that was so important. And I look at, we're not far from this year's Royal Rumble. And I know we kind of agreed not to talk about current stuff, but I can't help but ask, do you have some picks for who you think will win this year's Rumble?
I mean,
go ahead. Because let me go first. I think for the men, a lot of people seem to be putting hot money on Drew McIntyre, and I get it. Big guy, great look. I love Drew McIntyre. Right. I think Kevin Owens is going to win. I have some inside dirt here that Kevin Owens is going to win, as in my brain. I don't have any inside information, but I just think that Kevin Owens makes the most sense. I would love to see him do it. And on the women's side, I like Sasha Banks. I think that Sasha Banks, if Ronda doesn't come back, if Ronda comes back, I think she'll win. But I think Sasha Banks is going to feud with Bayley, and I think Sasha's going to come in as the babyface. And I think that's going to be one hell of a match at WrestleMania if we get there.
Okay.
So
I like that idea because I love Sasha to pieces. I mean, Alexa's always a threat to win these things because they love Alexa so much. Rollins is Rollins in the man.
I would imagine so. Okay. Yeah, I would imagine.
I think Rollins is always a threat to win this thing, even when he has a belt or doesn't have a belt. I always think he's the threat to win this thing. I've agreed with a lot of people that McIntyre feels like he's the choice here just to see what they can do because they've blown a couple of pushes with him already. And so maybe this is their last push that they can do with Drew. So they got to find a way to ignite it and give him something to do and maybe see if the fans gravitate to him overall. But the Sasha, I like that. I think Sasha's a possibility. Is Lacey in this Rumble? Do you think
Lacey's in it?
Do you think they give it to Lacey to kind of give her some kind of push here? Or is it kind of dying her push?
No, I think on the women's side of Raw, I think it's pretty much set in stone that it's going to be Becky Lynch and either Ronda or Shayna Baszler. It's going to be one of the two.
Gotcha.
And then on the other side, I just feel like as much stock have they been putting in Lacey Evans versus Sasha Banks, I think it's going to be kind of the turn because Sasha and Bayley have such good chemistry together. That storyline's built in. You might as well just go for it.
Yeah.
You might as well just have it at WrestleMania 1-on-1. I think people would love to see it. I just don't know whether you pull the trigger. Do you go ahead and stop Bayley's face or heel turn and turn Sasha face, or do you just go? That's going to be a jumbling mess.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that match again.
I've been loving Bayley's heel turn, so I hope they don't.
She's great.
I mean, that video they posted, she posted like a few days ago, where she's yelling at the fans. They're like, "I love you." She's like, "I hate you," and then turns around and talks. I mean, it's just great the way it's working out for her, and I think Bayley's really gravitating to it so naturally that it fits. It just really fits. It ain't Becky level stuff, but it's good for Bayley, and I think and it'd be funny to see Sasha all of a sudden being the face when she's usually the heel in these situations. So that could be. And so you ever back there? Right on.
Well, of course. I got the boss right here, so you can. There she is, the boss in all of her glory.
I'm not going to tell you it's boss time. I hate that.
It's boss time. I love
it. That every time he says it. All right. Anyway, well, that is the first episode of Strong Style here on the Outlaw Nation YouTube channel. I am so happy that Aaron and I are back together doing pro wrestling. We have texted each other. We have danced around the possibility, and I know there was some personal stuff that happened for Aaron last year, early last year, and we couldn't quite put it all together. And I'm happy that you were back, man. I'm happy we're back together because I've always enjoyed talking wrestling with you, brother.
I love you too. I think next week, already by popular demand, I'm already taking over, brother.
Yeah, please.
I think next week we've got to start on the road to WrestleMania. We got to start hot. I think we got to go with Brett and Austin from 13.
Wow.
I think we got to talk about
the Iron Man match.
I think let's start there. About? What do you think about that?
I'm down. I'm absolutely down.
Okay.
You know, that's one I did not see at the time and saw it afterwards, because this was around that time where I'd kind of walked away from WWF and had moved over to WCW with Hogan, I think. And so I've only seen the match once or twice. So I'm excited to talk about it with you next week. And maybe, are you going to watch the Rumble?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have a Rumble party tomorrow with some homies.
Perfect.
So,
all right. So maybe we'll do a quick, 20-minute, 30 minutes follow-up to this episode that we'll post a little bit later on in the week, giving our thoughts about how the Rumble went, what we thought, what we enjoyed about it, and leading into the second episode of Strong Style. This is how we're doing it. So subscribe on the podcast. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you're just discovering us, it's www.youtube.com/John Rocha Says. Aaron, where can they find you, my man?
You can find me on Twitter at only Aaron Turner, at only Aaron Turner. It's very easy to find. I talk about wrestling figures. I'm a big Fig fan, so we can talk about that. I also talk a lot about football uniforms, which is a weird thing, but me and my friends are big uniform fans. We love like the alternate unis, and I love wrestling gear as well, people in their different gear, so we'll talk about that. But yeah, find me there on Twitter. I don't do Instagram, and Facebook's really just for family, so Twitter's really the only place you can find me.
Are you writing for any sites right now? Or are you taking a break?
I was writing the NWA recaps for jobberknocker.com. Shout out to Jobberknocker for letting me do that, but that is stopped at the moment. So kind of just focusing on I want to do this right now. So my full focus is on this right now, and they told me I can come back whenever. So somewhere down the road we'll probably be talking some NWA.
I love it. Well, and hopefully when WrestleMania comes around, later on this year, I'll be down in Tampa for it, and Aaron and I maybe we'll do a live
that'll be sweet.
show, a Strong Style episode. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, thanks everybody. You can follow me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram, and as I said, the YouTube channel as well. Thanks everybody for downloading and listening or watching this episode of Strong Style. We'll be back next week with an incredible match between Stone Cold Steve Austin, the birth of Stone Cold Steve Austin, some might argue, and up against the hitman Bret Hart himself. I never get this right. Is he the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, or what it was? Is that it? Okay, I always
the best wrestler of all time. Yes, that's Bret Hart.
That's so incorrect.
The best ever.
That's so incorrect. I can't.
Best ever.
Someday we're gonna have that battle. Maybe if we get to a Patreon level, Aaron, we'll have fights about certain things that patrons will enjoy us battling about. That would be fun. Certainly, Bret Hart will be number one.
I've got an Austin figure, but he's up on the shelf. I'm not grabbing him down, but there is one up there. So I'm just saying, I got a Brett too, but yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks to Aaron. Thanks to everybody for watching. We'll talk to you next time on Strong Style.